Thank you. A little bit about who we are. So I am most honored to be here tonight, though not only sure about the Institute for Educational Advancement, but to be here with my very good friend, Jim Delisle, and to have the opportunity to introduce him to you. Jim has been teaching gifted children for over 40 years, hard to believe, amazing. He's retired from Kent State University in 2008 after 25 years. He currently has returned to teaching, volunteering his time with gifted middle school students. I have to personally know he also mentors many high school students and other young people all over the country. He's very generous with his time and his advice for gifted youth all over. He's the author of more than 250 articles and most recently 23 books. Many of his articles have been translated in many, many different languages and been published in things like the New York Times, People Magazine, Oprah News. Yay! Well, Jim has served on numerous boards, including NEGC, Duke Tip Program, and the Roper School. We are most proud to say that he is a member of our board of trustees. So thank you, Jim, for your time. But in addition to that, he also serves as one of our fellows at Camp NASA, which you just saw a little bit about what we do there. And you can imagine the impact he has on those young people, ages 10 to 14, that get to spend time with him for a whole week. Delightful. He's been with us for over 6 years and has been a great friend to me, advisor to the program, and to everything that we do. I know you'll enjoy your time together here tonight. But really, I think the thing he thinks is most important in the world right now is he just become moving. So, congratulations, and thank you so much.
Well, good evening, folks. How are you? You're awfully quiet. You need some noise here. It is a joy to be here. The last time I was at Mervyn was about 25 years ago. And I was working I believe I was working with teachers in an after-school deal. And so when I was actually coming up with Malcolm, I said, this looks familiar. I have a good memory of the places. So it's good to be back. And also to serve, as Betsy said, on the board of trustees for IDA. And if you told me 6 years ago that I'd be basically a camp counselor at the age of 60, I thought you were crazy. But the 1 week together that we have is more than just a camp, it's a communion of 70 kids from across the country, sometimes internationally as well. And to meet with these kids, to see their parents, in many cases, and just to work with, how many thousands of people have you served? That's, I think it was 10,000 kids over the course of 20 years. We just had our 20th anniversary gala on Friday night, this past Friday night. So anyway, it's a joy to be here and to share time both with IDA and the two folks. So, and yes, I do have a grandchild. I have pictures to prove it. He's the cutest kid that's ever lived. So if you deny it, I'm leaving now. All right. Anyway, a lot of what I've done in the whole field of gifted doesn't deal as much directly with the intellect as with the social and emotional needs that these kids have. And so I hope that comes through tonight. I'll talk for maybe, I don't know, 45 minutes or an hour or so. Take some time for questions and have some of that great feedback. It's really nice to have more than just chips and dip. They have a lot more back there. And feel free to get up during the talk and help yourself to anything that's back there. Well, anyway, this is the title of the newest book. And what I want to do tonight is not talk about the book itself, but these are the chapter titles. And what I've highlighted will be some of the things that I'd like to address because I don't have time to do all the pieces. So let's just get going with that first one, understanding what giftedness is and what it isn't. And to do that, I'm going to show you a cartoon. Two kids are coming home from school, like fifth graders. It was sad. I never saw anyone break down and cry in math class before. Well, he's from another school, and I suppose he was frustrated. You should realize that math is something you can't learn overnight. I know. Maybe you ought to consider teaching another subject. Yeah, you got it. I like putting that in there. I started out in my education career as a teacher of children with disabilities. First with those who had cognitive disabilities, with my bachelor's degree, and my master's was in working with kids with behavioral disorders. I call them young adults. When my first teaching job was in New Hampshire, I'm from New England originally, and there was a young man in my class who hated me like the devil hates holy water. And he did not like the work I was assigning him. He did not like a whole lot of what I did. But when it was anything focused on cars or hunting or anything that mattered to Matt, he did good work. And I won't bore you with the long story of how he changed my career, but it was all due to a skunk that he got sprayed by and came to school that day, loving to come to school that day, of course. And as he walked into my classroom, smelling so bad, I was so tired of this kid. So what happened? And he changed my life, because what he said was he was in his backyard checking on his business, which was maple sugar farming, and he had tapped all of the maple syrup, all the sugar maples in his backyard, which were quite a few. And also his neighbors, he had written contracts to do the same with them. And he had built a little bridge, he and his dad across the stream, which became much bigger during the winter snow melt, and blah, blah, blah. And he happened to get sprayed by a skunk because it's skunk mating season during maple season. And so I changed his curriculum to really focus on maple sugar. And he did that through math and science and everything. And by the first week, all of a sudden things had changed. And I saw in Matt some gifts and some attributes that I hadn't been allowed to see for 2 years. When I left after working with him another year, I told him I was leaving school because of him. And a lot of teachers had said that for other reasons. But that's when I started my doctoral work, understanding gifted kids. And I thought it would be easy. Hey, these kids are smart, right? All you gotta do is give them a book and they'll be fine. And you know. So anyway, let me read you a couple of things from parents of gifted kids, and one gifted kid herself, and see if it sounds like the boy or girl who brought you here tonight. All right, how about this? Their minds are black holes, endless pits that you keep pouring information into as they beg for more. Life for them is an existential dichotomy, simultaneously too much and never enough. Time is not a concept they acknowledge, just an unnecessary intrusion into their world of fascination. It's true they have infinite potential, but being eminently aware of the infinity concept, they are often completely overwhelmed with the multitude of choices and interests that lay before them. They challenge everyone around them, parent, teacher, or friend, to be the very best they can be. If you're really lucky, and it doesn't kill you, you get to be all three. One more. This from a young lady from New Zealand. She wrote me a letter and started with Kia ora, which is Maori for belong. I'm writing you with many questions and hope that for at least a few answers, although I'm not quite sure what you can tell me. I guess I should start with a little family history. Throughout her schooling, my mother was labeled gifted, although she was never given an IQ test. She was bored for most of her schooling, and she found that other children often used her and expected her to do their work for them. Her teachers used to tell her to help the other kids because she always finished her work so quickly. My father is very intelligent, but left school as soon as he turned 16 to go to work. He is now a managing director of a prominent company here in New Zealand. Here's my history. At 8 months, I was talking out of diapers. At 9 months, I walked, holding onto furniture. I opened a cookie cupboard and opened a cookie tin, taking a small bite out of each cookie so as to claim them as my own. At 18 months, I accompanied my mother to the dentist. She asked me if I liked TV, and I told him I watched Sesame Street. He asked what the show was, and I told him it was a production of the Children's Television Workshop, just as they say at the end of the show. Needless to say, he was taken aback that I was 18 months old. In preschool, I asked questions about anything and everything. I understood grown-up humor. I was highly sensitive to emotions and emotional issues, whether or not they affected me. I collected everything. I could talk my way out of trouble with anyone. I liked to be the boss, and I liked to be the best. I invented words when I needed one, and when I was told that word didn't exist, I would tell people, well, it should. And I made up my own poems, clapped to the rhythms of songs I'd heard once, and performed them whenever I had the opportunity. When I began school at age 5, I was reading at a 9th grade level. 2 weeks later, I was moved up a grade, but was held back the next year because teachers said I was socially immature. In later grades, I was told I was, quote, bright but lazy, because although I wrote well, I wrote slowly. In high school, I was one of 4 students chosen for a special gifted program, but the program ended after 1 year, and I languished once again. I continued to excel in classes that didn't require much writing, but failed in those that did. And then she asked me a couple of questions, but here's one I really like. Should I have an IQ test to see how smart I really am? And secondly, from what you've read, do you think I may be gifted? Or do you think that I'm just smart enough to know that I'm capable of more, but stupid enough to think that I'm capable of more than I am? Please write back, Sue, and I am desperate. Did any of those things sound like your kid? How many of you, but a kid, boy, girl, or both, who brought you here tonight, how many of you suspected or realized your child was gifted before they were of school age? All right, somebody, can you tell me what were some of the signs, or one of the signs? Somebody want to pick on you specifically. Do you have one that's... At what age? Vocabulary and curiosity. That's 2 years old. Okay. Vocabulary not only expressive, but receptive. You think you're having a private adult conversation and the kids understand what you're saying? It's maddening. It happens a lot. All right, what other elements, what other indicators did you have? Yes?
Reading well before 3, reading to other children.
Okay, what age?
Well before 3.
Okay, well before 3. Anyone ever accuse you of teaching? Is it a boy? Is it?
He was the teacher.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But sometimes parents appear to kids and make them feel bad because you shouldn't be teaching this kid that. It's like, wait, I have no choice. You know, I'm not a pushy parent. They're a pushy kid. You know, how do you stop them or her from reading something when that's what they do naturally? You had a comment. Yeah. Sense of humor. Give me an example.
That she could understand the grown-up jokes.
Okay, well, I have a story that goes along with that sense of humor. I was working in a school, I was like teaching in a school in Ohio, and it was near the beginning of school, and all the kids in this K-6 school were sitting in a cafeteria or auditorium, sitting on the floor. And the littlest kids, of course, were in the front. The teacher was the phys ed teacher showing a movie on how to be safe at recess. All right, so the movie's over. The teacher goes up to shut off the film projector, and he fell over the cord. So this little 6-year-old is doing exactly what you are now. He's laughing his butt off and getting in trouble because the teacher just saying, "You can't laugh at somebody who just got hurt." And the kid's trying to say in language he didn't have, "The guy's showing a film on safety, and he fell down. That's funny." Yeah, if I didn't have any test scores to use to get to this, I'd say tell me your favorite joke. Because oftentimes it's adult focused with irony or sarcasm or something, and it's a joy, but it can also be a challenge, especially for teachers. All right, 2 more examples. When did you know? Yes.
Willfulness.
Willfulness. Yeah, I bet you have an example of that.
I need to, I can't remember because it's been years now, but 3 or 4 years ago, she just would not take it all direction. She did whatever she wanted, so to this day.
How old is she now?
11.
Okay, still doing it.
Oh.
All right, one more from this end. Yes. Okay. Yeah, so they can memorize stuff, or they hear something once and they don't need to hear it again. And yet how many times, hopefully not at Merman, but in other schools, do they have to do the same thing again and again just because. Kind of like this kid who's from California. And this is his homework as a 5-year-old, and he's refusing to do it. If he's not doing homework at 5, that's not a good sign. But this is what he does instead of copying J's. And they're correct. Yeah, he's 5. So imagine I'm his teacher. I'm not brave enough to teach kindergarten, but nonetheless, I'm asking him to do this. And he's like, why? How many more letters are there in this alphabet? You know? Why can't I just do it twice and then get on to something different, like with relevance and with purpose, with meaning? And then there's this example, this is from the Santa Barbara area. And a teacher who's been teaching for years and years, teaches first grade, and I already kind of gave it away here, but on the first day of school, she gives her kids this page, just complete. And as you can see here, here's what I do well in school, everything. And Jake said, I know, and what does the teacher say? Can you read it? Stop interrupting. All right. The second part of this is, what would you like to learn this year? Nothing. Where's I could do better? Sorry. Nothing. Jake's like, but I don't need help. And the teacher said, you need help. Now, a psychologist would go nuts here with the rain clouds and the thunder and all this kind of stuff. But look at when she asked, what do you mean? He said, I never tried anything I can't do. My guess is a lot of you have kids who never failed at anything they tried, at least when they were younger. I now currently teach ninth graders who start college in ninth grade at a public school in South Carolina. I'll get more into that in a little bit. But I have kids in ninth grade who have never had anything below an A. And I feel sorry for those kids. I feel sorry for them because that first one, when it does come, is devastating. And they have to realize that it's not. But they don't, because everything else is, why should I try this? I might not get it right. You never tried anything you can't do. It's a dangerous place to be, from my perspective, as a kid. All right, this one is just relatively recent from Virginia. It's a young lady who unfortunately failed her handwriting class in second grade, and she was devastated. So she decided to write her teacher a letter of apology. Mrs. Snyder, I'm very sorry I didn't do much in my December handwriting. I have large regrets still inside me, unfulfilled, that I am still sad about. I should have done it while I had the chance, but oh, what have I done? Huge problems are coming my way. How can I pay for college with a grade like that? Never will, possibly. I might not graduate high school. I would be begging for scraps instead of going to college. I wish I had done my handwriting. I will improve by doing my handwriting, not just one page. I will do each and everything, including the labels. I shall work and work and work until my hands get sore and throb like my heartbeat. I shall not refuse to work, even if my hands hurt. I shall never, 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 never quit. I shall not retreat. My life has been miserable since you gave me my handwriting. Before today, I will change everything. I will do my handwriting with great dreams and apologetically yours, Maya. You can't make this stuff up, right? And so I said, because the mom came to her talk similar to this, and I said, is your daughter with sarcasm? And she said, no, this is real. This is something that the girl felt deeply, and we'll get more into the emotions that these kids often feel so deep. We all have emotions with some of these kids at a young age, and this is just one example. I said, how did the teacher respond? And the teacher never did. I don't know how you don't respond to something like this, but anyway. All right, there's a couple more examples, and then I'll tell you what this is all leading. All right, this came from Oregon. This is a great story. There's a mom, this is again a session like this, and she has two kids, a boy and a girl. And the girl is older, 10 years old, and she's been identified as gifted in the gifted class, blah, blah, blah. Well, the 7-year-old son had not been identified as gifted yet, but the mom was like, I got another one here coming up. And this is how she determined it, just my way anyway. Patrick had been, was being reprimanded at home one evening because his toys were all over the living room. And mom and dad said, put the toys away. And he's like, I wasn't playing with them, my sister was. Parents were like, too bad, your toys, your responsibility. He was not a happy camper. So the next morning at breakfast, he said this to his older sister. I know that women live 6.5 years longer than men, but if you don't leave my stuff alone, it won't be you. Do you need a test score? You have evidence like that? That's good. Okay, there's one last one. One last one for middle school. This is a teacher in Texas, and she teaches language arts in middle school. And there was a kid, apparently, an 8th grader in the back of the room, who never was interested in anything. You know, just kind of sat back like I do, teach you something kind of kid. I love those kids. But anyway, so the teacher was saying, how can we make our writing more interesting? People will want to read it and stuff. What techniques could you use? And the first example was onomatopoeia. So the teacher's trying to write this on the board, and you try spelling it, you know. And so she says, what other techniques might we use? And one kid said, irony. And she said, can anyone give me an example of irony? You know what's coming, right? So the kid who never answered anything in the back of the room says, irony is an English teacher who doesn't know how to spell onomatopoeia. So when we look to identify kids, what I want you to do, I'm not looking at numbers. I mean, I know people use numbers, test scores, all that. I'm wanting you to provide the evidence that you get from your own eyes and ears. The numbers might be supplemental, but it's the examples that I showed you that you're all nodding your heads because you have them too. Those are valuable insights. And if you have to back up a number with things like that, it honestly does help. We get more information as teachers from parents that we sometimes dismiss, and that's a shame. I'm not blaming all teachers, trust me, but what I'm saying is I think the evidence that you have, just as the evidence I showed you, when you put it together in a collective, tells us something about who the kids are from the inside out, not just their intellects, but their hearts. And that's why I want to share with you this conception of giftedness. Just let you read that first. I called Anna Marie Roper. She died about 4 years ago at the age of 92. Her last book was written when she was 90. She is, among other things, she was a Holocaust survivor. Her parents started a school in Germany that was one time taken over by the Nazis, and it's now back in other person's hands. The school has just celebrated its 100th anniversary. And Anne-Marie and her then boyfriend, now husband before he died, also came to this country and started a school for gifted kids in Michigan called the Roper School. Started in 1941. I think only the second school in the country that was devoted private school for gifted kids, and the first one in the eastern part of our country to admit blacks on the same basis as whites. They were very much into civil rights as well as education and equity. Anna-Marie helped get Sesame Street started. She was a good friend with Carl Rogers, if you know his work in psychology, and on it would go, the life that Anna-Marie led. But one thing she was the director of the lower school. So the kids started in nursery school and ran up to now it's high school. It used to be that 8th grade. And Anna-Marie ended up working with the littlest kids, and she followed them for 70 years. Who does that? 70 years of wisdom that she had collected from these kids she taught when they were 4. And back in the 1980s, when she wrote this conception of giftedness, she really looked beyond the obvious, beyond just the mind. And these kids, as you said, they're so aware of things that are going on. They're more perceptive, perhaps, than other kids their age. They're more sensitive, whether that sensitivity is an emotional one or just being aware of things around them that other kids dismiss. And they put these things together into a gestalt that can sometimes be frightening because it's so mature. And this, to me, is a conception of giftedness. It'll never be used in the schools or identified, but nonetheless, I think it's the kid who brought you here tonight. It's not just the intellects these kids have, it's something much greater than that. Let me switch into the next one, which is knowing the distinction between better at and better than. One thing that I found remarkable, when I taught kids who had disabilities, people would come up to me and say, oh, you must have deficiencies of sense. Oh, I'm so glad there are teachers who do the work that you do. Well, I think of gifted as a part of special ed, just at the other extreme. That's not how I got the reaction from a lot of folks. It was like, from teachers, some of them said, why are you taking my best kids? Why are you taking the ones who always lead the discussions? So I was not a special ed teacher anymore. I was an elitist. I'm like, how'd that happen? All I want to do is take kids who, for regular school, does not fit in a different way. If it didn't fit for a kid with a disability, there's also kids who it doesn't fit for school, it's too easy. And why is that elitist to do that? But I don't know if any of you have ever found that in your discussions with people in your neighborhood or whatever. If you say you go to a gifted school or you have a gifted child, you know, oh. You know, they kind of put their nose like it smells, so oh. And all you're trying to say is I have a kid who has needs that are not delivered into the chronological age. If you had a child, or if you do with a disability, no one says that you want special treatment that shouldn't be done. Why is that the case, in some cases anyway, with gifted kids? That's one reason I want you to use the word gifted with your kids. A lot of parents avoid it. They say, shh. If we're not willing to accept that that is a term that applies to our child, maybe even ourselves, then it's going to be real tough for the kids to accept it themselves too. So here's one of the things I do. This is from one of the books I wrote for teenagers, and I'll go over these things tonight, but certainly know how. I wrote a book called The Gifted Teen Survival Guide, and it's now in its 4th edition, so it's done real well. But when we heard from kids who had read the book, they were like, we like the book, but how about you do some stuff that we really want to hear about? And so these were the, what we call 8th grade gripes, things we didn't have in the book in the 1st edition that we applied to the 2nd, all right? And again, I won't go over all of these, but here's what I do with these, if you're taking a photo of. When I give these to my students now, they're pretty self-explanatory. And I say, what I'd like you to do is read each of these, and if any of them apply to you, just put a circle around them. And if they don't apply to you, just cross them out. And on the back of the sheet, anything you've circled, just give an explanation as to why you circled the one that you did. That's really helpful for my own students. But this is something that really talks about many facets. This is UNASA at camp. We look about the balance of kids from every perspective, social, emotional, intellectual, etc. This does the same thing with them. Okay. But here's how I get kids talking about what it's like to be gifted. And these are from fourth graders. And I put the word gifted in the middle of the page, and all the other ovals are empty at the time. Okay. Now, with pluses and minus signs are pretty obvious. You can think of something positive or not so good about the term gifted, or what goes along with that term. So if you go up, this is from Kenny and Tommy. They said if you're gifted, people think higher of you. That's a positive. A positive about that is when you can help, it makes you feel better. But a negative is sometimes we expect too much. People tease you, which isn't cool. A negative about that, it makes you feel bad. But a positive, it makes you feel better that you're not teasing them. Now, whether that's that sensitivity or the birds to fill in the bubble, I'm not sure. But nonetheless, it's a different approach to the bullying, if you will. Here's another one. If you go up again, if you're gifted, you can get into better collages. So don't worry about handwriting or spelling. If they have it, they don't, right? And if you get out of those collages, you get a good job. So used to. And now, those better collages cost more money, so start saving up. And to the left, people think you're perfect. That's a negative. So you get called names when you're not. How does smart girl get a B on her math quiz? Stuff like that. But a positive is people trust you with more things. Just a couple more. I think this is last one. Oh, it's two more. This girl is awesome. Her name is Stephanie. I taught her for 3 years. And she skipped a grade. She skipped fourth grade. So she was a young fifth grader in this class. But this is what she wrote about positive and negative almost all in one. You might not have as good an imagination, she wrote. Since you know things are or aren't true that other kids do. A negative is you might not believe stories that would be fun to believe, and a positive is you can still pretend you believe them and have fun. She was so ambidextrous socially because she would start her conversations with kids, especially up here, and if they got it, she stayed there. And if they didn't, very graciously and gradually, she lowered until she got to the magic point. All right. So she'd start talking about Neanderthals, and if the kid went, she'd go, cavemen. And she did it graciously, and she was friends with everyone because she didn't say, I can't believe it, you don't know that. No, she had the sensitivity and she had this social ability that took her very far. So, and then this last one, if you're gifted, go up, you're creative. That's good, but if you get in trouble, that's a negative. And being creative, you can see stuff other people can't. If I go to the left, if you're gifted, kids tease you. It's not good, so you feel bad. But a positive is you can come up with good comebacks. Singers or whatever. What I do with this, and I invite you to do the same thing if you get up this chart at home, is I say to the kids, all right, I want you to just take a look around. We're going to do a gallery walk in class, which means no hands. You look on, you pick it up only with your eyes. And you just start seeing what other kids write. And you hear the kids whisper, look, she said the same thing I did. I never thought of that. And then we come together and we have this amazing discussion about the pros and cons of this gifted thing. Don't be afraid to look at it. And don't be afraid to talk about it and put it in the context that these kids do. It really is beneficial for your children to do that. The next is called taking charge of your own education. And I want to show you one of my favorite examples of how two teachers changed a kid's life. One of those teachers happens to be my wife. She was a teacher of gifted kids when I met her, actually. And she was in a pull-out class, so the kids came to her 1 day a week, and every day was new kids and stuff. Well, there was this one new boy in school who just transferred in from a Montessori school, and he was fifth grader. And the first week, he took the science book home, the science textbook, and came back and showed his teacher 3 pages of corrections to send to the publisher. So it was very bright. And everything the teacher did, she did right. This is about my wife, but this is a classroom teacher. She pre-tested him on everything, and everything she gave him, he did right. So she said, now what do I do with the rest of the year? So they decided to meet with my wife, and they put together some assignments for Robert that were dictated by him. Because they needed to know for state level testing and all that he knew what he knew. But once they proved that, they said the time is yours. You can't just sleep. What would you like to do instead? His first big project was called Relativity 1, 2, 3, which is an explanation of the theory of relativity for kids his age. There's a great line in the introduction that says, I don't understand everything I wrote, but physicists have a saying, you never understand a new theory, you just get used to it. I hope this helps you get used to relativity. And the second thing he did was he decided to write poems about science because he'd never seen those. He's seen poems, he's seen science. So this is my favorite one. Again, he's from Connecticut, so you have to put yourself where he is as you envision what he wrote. I see a leaf. It is yellow with red and orange mixed in. My mind says the yellow is caused by the oxidation of leftover sugars. The red and orange are caused by the emergence of recessive pigments. I see a leaf that is yellow with red and orange mixed in. My heart says the yellow is a bit of leftover sun from summer. The red and orange is the leaf spiraling down the lower spectrum as it is going to sleep. I sleep. Not bad for 11. Not bad for 40. He did 21 of these poems. And it was because of teachers who said, we don't want to stand in the way, like I did with the maple syrup kid, maple sugar kid. We just said, what can you teach us about how we can teach you? Okay, so that to me is just a prime example of a kid with a meshing between what, in this case, he needed and what the school offered were very close. If that's not the case for your kids, and it isn't always, there's two things I want you to do. This is especially, so this is not for the youngest of kids, but I'd say 5th grade and up, and especially middle school, there's 2 resources I want to give you. Actually, the second one is included in this. But I don't want your kids, and actually neither do they, once they get to that certain age, which is around 6th grade, they don't want mom or dad coming into school to rescue them. Even if things aren't going well, they still are independent enough at that age, or they hope to be, that maybe they're the ones who can make things change, make things different. And that's what my colleague calls self-advocacy. That if we don't give our kids the skills to approach an adult in a respectful, professional way, if something doesn't fit, then when they get to college, they're not going to know how to do it with their professors. So this is one book that I really admire, and this is included. I know it's tough to read, you can find this online. It's something I wrote with a colleague probably 25 years, 30 years ago, called 10 Tips for Talking to Teachers. Sometimes you really have a good idea, like for writing poetry about science, and if the teacher doesn't approach you, how do you approach that teacher? A lot of kids don't have those skills, or maybe they're intimidated, maybe they're not sure it's going to work. But if you give them specific strategies to how they can approach someone who, when something is not working, I mean, I don't wake up in the morning as a teacher and say, oh, I wonder how I can bore my smartest kids. But sometimes the fit isn't right. When they get to a certain age, it's as much their responsibility, if not more so than yours, to give them these skills. Okay, I teach high school, I taught college freshmen for 25 years. I know what I'm talking about when it comes to the self-advocacy stuff. Okay, so give them those skills. You may still have to go in and do a rescue once in a while, but put the responsibility on them. They'll take more credit for it. They'll feel it's more important when you're the ones who made the change, or tried to get the change. Okay. This next area is called less than perfection. It's more than acceptable. And some of you will be feeling really guilty by the end of this next 10 minutes. So get over it now. All right. So let's just share a cartoon. I'll just read the first frame, you're going to do the second. A D minus. Oh. Ready? Oh. That proved it, ma'am. We all have different thresholds of pain. I don't know, did you get letter grades at Merton? You don't get letter grades here. But is there some indication of leveling? Okay, so make believe it is a letter grade, and if you go to a different school that has them. If any of your kids get less than perfection, do they think they failed? It could be this close to perfect, but for them, it's a failure. That is so common with so many of the kids with whom I've worked over the years, and especially those, again, I said early on, have never failed at all. They just see it as devastating. I mean, I have some kids who get a B plus and they think they failed. I also have some kids who get a D minus and they remind me it's still passing. Okay? Which is the kid who's mentally healthier? The D minus, life goes on, but the B plus, I'm a failure. Okay? So what I want to try to do is share with you, and then hopefully you share with your kids, some ways that we can put this expectation thing, the perfection thing, into a different perspective. We evaluate our kids a lot. Imagine if they did it with us as often as we do it. But anyway, I'll show you this example, and this is one I do with my 9th graders. Let me just go back one second. I currently teach, as I said, just one day a month, which is the only way to teach 9th grade, in the public school in South Carolina. And this is a school that's been there for about 16 years now. The kids come in as 9th graders. In second semester of 9th grade, they start taking college classes for credit. High school is actually on a college campus. And by the time the kids finish high school, they have between 70 and 100 college credits, all paid for by the state and by our local district. It's awesome. And these kids are totally stressed out, because when you're 14 years old and you're taking college classes, that's not easy. So I go in and I deflate their emotional tires. Actually, my next teaching day is next Friday. I just go in and we just talk about stuff similar to what I'm talking about with you tonight. But anyway, one of the things that I share with them is this. So it's the first day that I meet with the kids. They don't know who I am, anyone. And I give them this list. I'll just have you read down with those. And they don't know who I am. And I read this list. It's pretty intimidating just to see these things. And I say, all right, what I'd like you to do is close your eyes. There are two things I require. So close your eyes and be honest. I'm going to read each one of these things. And if it's true for you, if you're feeling it, raise your hand. I'm not taking names, I'm just taking numbers. And I said, those eyes must be closed. So I read number 1. And the hands tentatively, as if you go, by the time I get halfway through the list, the hands are going all over. But which one of these do you think? I get at least 70% of the hands every time I do this. They go up. It's number 8. Number 8. So I say to the kids, all right, 70% of you cannot be the dumbest in school. One of you is the dumbest, but 70% of you cannot be. And they laugh just like you did. And they say, I don't think anyone felt that way. And yeah. So we talk about this and the study skills thing, which is number 9. If your kid got straight A's or is doing perfect in their schoolwork, eventually that goes away, whether it's 8th grade or graduate school. And the easiest and the best person to teach study skills is another kid who has them, not you. Okay? But anyway, go over these things. And it's just a way to talk about the pressures that you're feeling, the stresses, especially if you're in a climate where you think a lot of people, if not everyone, is smarter than you are. By talking about it openly, it really opens stuff up. So again, get real with them and get real world. And I share them these stats that about 60% of quarterbacks complete about the quarterbacks, most professional ones, complete about 60% of their passes. I've lived in Cleveland for 25 years, that's a much lower figure there, it's like 10%. But anyway, you look down there, basketball players, and actors, and stock market folks, and stuff like that. So we still pay these people lots of money, but they don't always succeed. Next example is with writers. Probably know all of these folks in terms of their work output and the quality and stuff. You look at the rejections, look at J.K. Rowling. More than 25 publishers said no thanks because the books are too long and too hard, kids won't read them. Duh, that was wrong. And on you go with this. Betsy mentioned that I've written 23 books. That's not correct. I've written 26. And 3 of them have been rejected more than 50 times. I had 1 book with 36 rejections. And when I talk to kids about books, writing, they want to know 2 things. How much money do I make? And do I ever get rejected? And when I tell them the royalty schedule, they go, that's it? I go, yeah. And then I would say, the rejection letters, do you want to see some? Yeah. And you know how cruel kids can be. So I pass out the letters and go, this guy hated your book. Look at my throat. But I still get a royalty check, as small as it is, for the books that didn't get rejected. That's what I want you to show to your kids. You're all good at something. You're very good at something. And there are times it doesn't work out. It is just as important to share those times as it is the successes of the stuff that you're good at. Or something that you didn't want to try because you thought you'd fail, and maybe you did. You need to share those times as well. Okay? We so seldom do that, and we need to. And to also put it in a different perspective, that there will be some people in life where no matter what you do, it's not going to be good enough for them. When I talk to teachers, many of them often say, you know, well, when I was going through school and started to go to college, and I decided I wanted to be a teacher. A lot of people say, why do you want to be a teacher? You're too smart for that. Or something like that, where they take your dreams and they rip your heart out because it's not their dream for you. My story, this is my Aunt Peggy. You will all know her by the end of the story. I was raised in a city called Lawrence, Massachusetts, which is the poorest city in New England, not economically poorest. And it was called by Rand McNally, one of the great places, as a decaying urban slum. It's pretty accurate. It's home, I didn't know, you know, so I was there for 17 years. And my parents had not gone to high school, had not finished high school. My dad dropped out in 9th grade, my mom eventually got a GED. So there was not a lot of educational prominence in my family. I was the first to go to college in our family. All right, so I got a PhD at 28. That's pretty young. And my parents gave me a party, what do you call it, a potty? And all the relatives came, including Aunt Peggy. And so she's, you know, drinking the cheap Carlo Rossi wine and squeezing my cheek and telling me how great a job I had done and proud I made the family, and on she's going. And on her way back home to drink it, she said, Jimmy, we're so proud of you, but you could have been a real doctor. You could have been the kind of doctor who really helps people. But I'm glad you got that PH, whatever it is. Till the day she died, Aunt Peggy thought I was an underachiever. I think I'm doing okay. But you don't want your kid to feel that no matter what he or she becomes, it's not good enough. So I tell my kids, including my own son, who majored in creative writing, and what did everyone tell him, including his college, high school counselors? I want to major in creative writing, and your response is, it should be great, but that's not the response. How are you going to make money at that? You know, and it was tough for 2 years. Since then, he's won an Emmy, been nominated for a Grammy for some of the work he's done. I think he's doing okay, but no one in his life except his mom and I just said, what is it about creative writing that attracts you? Instead, they said, well, you're great, you should be something into STEM. That was not the match, trust me. And he's wonderful. He's living in New York City, he's a video editor, doing great work, and he's happy. And I think we forget that happy element by the pressure that sometimes our kids feel, whether it's imposed or they just feel it's imposed by another adult. So I tell them, you have 2 years on your head for a reason. In one, out the other. When someone who doesn't even know you well, and I'm Peggy Lukai, is telling you who you should be, you could fight with them, you could argue with them, or you could just walk away, say thank you and move on. That's a survival skill our kids need. Okay. And this is the part that's going to make you feel guilty, so I'm sorry. But these are things you can never say to your kids again. And I can only put them up there because I've said so myself. Okay. But if you say stuff like, your report card is good, but, the minute you say but, you've taken away the compliment you just intended to give. There's 2 things you can do. You can just say your report card is good and leave it there. Or even better, say your report card is good and, because the minute you add and instead of but, you continue the good stuff. Now, if they have to do better, fine, just tell them at another time. But you know, if you work someplace where you get evaluated, that they tell you all the good stuff up front and then they squeeze in the middle of the stuff you have to improve, what do you remember when you leave that meeting? The stuff you got to improve, right? So it's just human nature. So don't put your kids in that bind or yourselves. You did a great job on that and then fill it in with something else. Okay? The second one, this will be easy for a smart kid like you. So the kids who come to my school, there are 3,000 8th graders in our county and only 50 kids get selected. That's pretty selective, okay? So if that kid's starting as a dad, I say, I'm so glad you're going to that school. It'll be easy for someone as smart as you are. Imagine if it isn't. Imagine if it isn't. Better to say something like, I am happy that you're taking on this challenge. I've got your back. It may not always be easy. I've got your back. That's reassuring rather than what's set up here. And the third one, I don't care about your grades. I just want you to try your best. What you say instead is, I don't care about your grades. I just want you to try. The minute you add best to the statement, if you have a perfectionistic kid, they think that's the only thing they can be is this. That's not what you mean when you say it, but it is how some kids, many kids interpret it. So I don't care about your grades, I just want you to try. That's exactly what you mean, just say it. And the last one, you know, working up to your potential. Stab me in the heart. That's like, yeah, that's typical I'm Peggy thing, right? But anyone tonight want to stand up and say, I have an announcement to make? I have reached my potential. Time to die. Yeah. It's just a stupid statement, everybody. And no kid, no 12-year-old, so you have a meeting with the school or something, and the teacher says, your son is bright, but he's not working up to his potential. So you go home, so your teacher says you're not working. What does a 12-year-old do with that? Nothing. It's not specific. You need to say, okay, this is what you did this quarter, this is what I expect next quarter. Can we come to some agreement here? The more specific you can be, the better. Get the word potential out of there, unless you qualify it with how. Okay. All right, let me move on. Anyone feel guilty? This is one I'd like to show. I found this during a workshop in Minneapolis, and this was just in a newspaper. About things we can do. This is great for caregivers or grandparents, babysitters, stuff like that. A lot of what our kids do, in fact, most of what our kids do when they get together with other kids, is get into competitions. Whether it's a spelling bee or a math quiz or a sports team or whatever. And I'm not against competition, but I do want our kids once in a while to do something where there's no winners or losers. It's just fun. And the two examples I love here are number 10, be silly together. And this happened, an example I had was when I was a teacher in Ohio. And our middle school girls soccer team was really, really good. And all they had to do was beat the evil team of Solon to the north, and they were going to go into the state or the regional finals. But we lost, the girls' team lost, our team lost 1-0. And it was a pouring rain, awful, ugly day. And the girls all got together in a huddle at the end after they just lost, and they're kind of consoling each other and crying. And one by one, parents kept going over, trying to say, oh, don't worry, you had a good season, you know, things like that. And the girls just kept pushing away the parents. And then one dad didn't do that. He went to a mud puddle and just started jumping up and down, and there's mud flying everywhere. And one of the girls said, I think your dad's wet. And so the dad just did this, and one by one, the girls came over and they started jumping. Within seconds, they were laughing too. Sometimes the best thing to say is nothing. And that dad was wise enough to know that by just being silly. And the last one is a real personal one for me, actually, is tell them stories in which they are the hero. Number 7. Our son was in freshman year of college. It was a very rough year for him. He was 1,200 miles away from home, and things were not working out. And it was real tough for him, and it was real tough for us. It all worked out eventually, but we're going through it this time. Anyway, we were writing letters back and forth to each other, not just emails. And I wrote him one just about the relationship we had as dad and son. And he wrote me back a letter that basically was just a catharsis of his own shooting, you know, just needing to get stuff off his chest, so to speak, emotionally and otherwise. But he got married in Carmel Valley about 10 years ago at an orchid farm. And so I had to give a toast. I didn't have to, I wanted to give a toast to my son. And I pulled out the letter that he wrote when he was 18 years old. It's still in my briefcase. And it was written on Winnie the Pooh stationery. It was totally embarrassing with his new life. But it was basic, and I read it, and at first I didn't know it was his words, but it was a paragraph that showed how he was my hero. And that was a great moment. To just share something that personal, that doesn't have a winner or loser, it just brought us close together. Right? So think of those things you can do that you just do the heck of it. And sometimes those will be remembered more than the trophies. Okay. Anna Roper, I referred to earlier, said that, you know, about what giftedness looked like from the inside out. She also, at a conference years ago, someone asked her, what's the greatest gift we can give to our gifted children? And it wasn't an item, it was an idea. Here's what she wrote. We need to give them the belief that the gifted child is average with gifts instead of superior with faults. When you're good at so many things, people try to remediate what you don't do well, instead of focusing on the stuff where you do either excel or just love, okay? And I think this advice from I gotta call my gifted grandmother, is just so poignant, because that's what we want, you know, they're kids, you know, they goof up. Trust me, my 9th graders took a suspended last week. They're still 9th graders, you know. They might be smart as it all can be, but they're still 9th graders. Because when they're that much more intellectually advanced, we tend to assume that socially They'll be there emotionally or when it comes to responsibilities. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And let's just see it from that perspective. All right, and the last topic before I take some questions from you is the one that I think is the most all-encompassing for the night. And it starts, of course, with the cartoon, all good things do. Mom and dad are in the principal's office. And the principal has good news and bad news. The good news is that your son is advanced. The bad news is that we're afraid he's going through a midlife crisis. You're a kid where everything matters, and it matters that it matters. Everything, it could be the smallest thing, it matters to them. You're like, get over it, it doesn't work, because that's who they are. If you had one word, only one, to describe the boy or girl or both who brought you in here tonight, what word would you use that best describes him?
Old soul.
Old soul, that's 2 words, but I'll take it. Intense, sensitive, keep going. Louder, can you?
Perfectionist.
Okay, perfectionist. Yeah, keep going.
Eccentric.
Eccentric,
Relentless.
relentless,
Kind.
kind.
Perceptive.
I did this with a group of parents. There's an institute that actually Betsy helped form called the Davidson Institute for Talent Development, based in Reno, but actually Pasadena is where they're from originally. And they have a program called the Young Scholars Program that now involves about 2,500 families nationwide. Some of you may be young scholar parents. And it's amazing programs that they run. But I asked the first 2 years, they used to have a camp, and the parents and the kids came at Lake Tahoe. And the kids were pretty 10 years old, so quite young. And I asked the parents the question I just asked you. And here are some of the words that long ago cohort of parents and gifted kids came up with. Some of them you said are on there, aren't there? Transcendent. Do you ever have somebody say your kid is like an old soul in a young body? You know, how do they have the insights that they do and all that kind of stuff? Cranky, I think, was just a 4-year-old having a bad day, but all the others, deep, inventive, original, intense. And that's the word that I focus on, not because your others were wrong, but to me, it is one of the more all-inclusive words than all the ones that were there. I share this sheet, if you want to take a photo, feel free. I share this sheet with kids who are 9 years old and up. But sometimes at Camp UNASA, when I'm with the kids, especially the first years. And I say to them that these are not prerequisites to being gifted, but a lot of times gifted people have one or more of these intensities. And this is based on a ton of psychological research I'm not going to talk about tonight. But let me just see if it sounds like the kid who brought you here. I'll give you an example, 1 or 2 examples of each of these. First of all, that intensity of thought. Your mind is always worried from the minute she wakes up to the minute she goes to bed. Your ears are tired because it's either questions, not just questions to get attention, but questions to get answers. Or they come home from school and they're shaking because they're so excited about something they learned, or they're disappointed about something they did. That intensity is so focused. And the intensity of purpose, once they get their mindset on something, they're gonna learn it. What was the word you used? Willful. Willful, no. Yeah, that's it, okay. And it may be something like that you don't care about at all. Yeah. A finisher. Yeah, that's a good thing in some respects. but yeah, and relentless is another good word for that. The intensity of emotion. I'll tell you a beautiful story about that. Everyone has emotions, but these kids seem to be real high or real low without a lot of middle ground. Again, everything matters that it matters. And you say, don't take it so hard. And they look at you like what am I supposed to do? This is just who I am. And the intensity of spirit. These are kids who do not watch the news. Or you see what's going on in the world, even at 5 years old, they're either scared or worried. They ask, why are we doing this? And we don't have answers as adults, let alone the 5-year-old. And then the intensity of soul, which is the little philosophers in your family who ask questions that they have no business asking because they're too young. Our son, he was 4, he had a bedtime tuck-in ritual. He would say, okay, tonight you have to answer 3 questions or 2 questions. And it was questions like if Batman and Superman had a fight, who would win? One of those. But one night it was that, and then do you feel the same way right before you were born and right after you die? Ask your mother. You're 4. Let's go back to Batman. Anyway, so let's take a look at the intensity intensity of thought, does this look familiar? And it could be reversed. But they have so much bottled up inside. And so they come home from school. What did you do in school today? You didn't say much. It might be because these thoughts have almost just captured them for hours. And how do you talk about a couple of them and your mind is so full? But here's another example that I love from an adult, remembering what intensity looked like for him. And he talked about being a second grader and discovering something that he's carried with him since then. When I was a second grader, the teacher gave a homework assignment introducing the concept of zero. There are several problems in which zero was added to or subtracted from various numbers. Of course, the answer was that the number always remained the same. I sat alone in my room and stared with tears at the seemingly senseless problem. I wondered, how could I add something to a number and yet the number remained unchanged? Suddenly I understood and had the first mystical experience of my life. The immensity of the concept of nothingness overwhelmed me. I was awed by the realization that mathematicians were brilliant enough to capture this immensity in a little symbol. I felt a sense of comfort and love. Most kids probably say it's easy homework. This kid took it someplace else. The intensity of purpose, and actually, I might pick on somebody in the audience who I know I'm looking at right now if I can do this. Can I do it? I won't embarrass it. One of the programs that's in the Davidson Institute is called the Young Ambassadors Program. And these are kids who have a passion for something that they want to share with others. But I want to share two of them with you. This came from a girl in Los Angeles, actually, who was an ambassador, I believe, 2 years ago. I work with these kids on an online basis as they develop their projects. And this is what Jackie wrote. It was called Poetic Voices, a student-run nonprofit sharing poetry with senior citizens. And she writes this: my most powerful moment while sharing poetry was with a senior named William. He enjoyed writing poetry as a hobby and attended every single one of my workshops. Even after he got better and left the rehab center, he would email me the dates of each workshop and attend as a guest. If he was too sick to come or had other plans, he would email me right after the workshop asking for poetry prompts, about the poetry prompts. I worked with him for over a year until he suddenly passed away. His wife joined the next workshop to tell me how much he loved my workshops, and I would talk about them with her all the time. I was moved to know how others valued time spent writing and sharing poetry. The kids stay with this project for a minimum of 1 year, and in many cases go beyond that. And guy back here named Luke is a new ambassador. Yay, Luke. And this was my first time the other day meeting him. I met him online in his cohort group, and I want to talk a little bit about what they're doing. Yeah, come on up. You're easier to see there.
So I'm a part of the ambassador program, and what we do is we get a mentor, and that mentor will guide us through our nonprofit organization, which we create to help other people. My project is GovLearn, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating young elementary and middle school students about government and politics. It's one of the most underused topics in elementary and middle school education, and it's one of the most crucial. And I think it's important to educate these people when they're young about an important topic like this, so that when they're adults and they're voting, they know what to do and what they're voting on, and the importance of the government. Do you want me to go more about the program?
1 more minute.
All right. What should I say? So it's been really great. I met a lot of people who are also part of this program with great organizations. Every year there's a summit with the Davidson Institute in Reno, and I went there last year and I met a couple of ambassadors, and this year everyone's going to be going for the graduation ceremony, and we're going to finish the program and hopefully continue our nonprofits. So there's a lot of support. Every month there's a seminar online through a forum about making connections with other people to help your nonprofit, or fundraising, or all sorts of things that could help your nonprofit grow. And it's been really great, and it's been really helping me with my nonprofit has been really wonderful.
That's about a sense of purpose. I'm going to skip the next slide because Luke was a first-person example of what that looks like. The next one, though, is these are also just children. These are examples of the intensity of emotion, and I'll start again with the cartoon. Whenever you scold me, I get a headache in my heart. You know, just the kids who kind of go, oh, you know what they mean, and how did they say it, and I didn't. But I want to introduce you to a girl, a daughter I never had, but probably the most emotionally rich child with whom I ever worked. I taught her in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We're still in contact. She's an adult now. She's actually a physician. She's a pharmaceutical oncologist at Ohio State University Hospital. She's amazing. And anyway, when I met her, she was a 6th grader, and we kept in touch, as I said. Well, she wrote me this email. This was just one indicator of the beauty that Sarah has and the emotion that she has. And as I said, everyone's got them. Everyone has the emotions, but hers just peak and valley to so many extremes. And she wrote this after she was in a relationship for the first time with a guy. She was in high school, he was 2, she was 15, he was 16. And she just wanted to let me know how cool he was. And this is what she wrote. On Christmas Eve, Adam gave me a most wonderful surprise, one that no one I have told had ever seen performed by someone in our age group. He had planned it for weeks, and I later found out my whole family was involved. While I was at the Christmas Eve vigil, he came over and cooked dinner, set up a candle at a table for 2 in my basement, and dressed in a tux. When I came home, my sister led me to her room, while I was instructed to put on the dress that I'd worn the previous year to a formal dance. At that particular dance, I wore the dress, but came home in tears, because no one had asked me to dance. When I emerged from my sister's room, Adam was standing in the hallway in his tux. He informed me that dinner was waiting. I was literally shaking with delight and unquenchable joy. As tears filled my eyes, he led me downstairs to where the dinner was set up, and after dinner he played It Must Have Been the Mistletoe. And to make up for the last time I'd worn that dress, Adam asked me to dance. This was truly the best Christmas ever. I made a big mistake and showed this to my wife, who said you could learn something from the 16. But the line I loved the most, I love all of it, but I was literally shaking with delight and unquenchable joy. She didn't just say, wasn't he awesome? That's just not how Sarah operates. Her highs are real high, her lows are real low. I have more examples I can have time to share about her. But one of the things that bothered Sarah was oftentimes when she had these expressions of emotion that were so deep, people would say, don't take it so seriously, can't you just chill out? You know, things that dismissed what she was feeling. And I found something that I shared with her years later, a quote from Anne Lamott, one of her books, where she says this: as far as I can recall, none of the adults in my life ever remembered to say, some people have a thick skin and you don't. Your heart is really open and that is going to cause pain, but that is an appropriate response to this world. The cost is high, but the blessing of being compassionate is beyond your wildest dreams. However, you're not going to feel that a lot in 7th grade. Just hang on. Those 3 words, just hang on, are some of the most powerful affirmation, is a powerful affirmation you could get, because it's not dismissing the feelings they have, it's acknowledging them and not saying there's a ready solution. Don't you say, hey, when people say, oh, tomorrow will be a better day. It's today that I'm not feeling good. Just hang on, it really does work. Let's skip this next one and get to right near the end here. This is from the Intensity of Spirit, very old example, and I'll never give it up. Again, I was teaching 6th grade when 9/11 happened. And as just people all over the country, the world, and certainly our country, how do you talk about this, or do you with the kids in our lives? It's a very difficult time. As a teacher as well, I didn't know if you should bring it up, ignore it, whatever. So I decided to bring it up through photographs. And so I found a lot of photographs in our local Cleveland paper that had something about that awful time. And I just gave them to the kids and said, just write anything you'd like about any of the photographs. And so this is a World Trade Center walker. He's leaning on a railing, it's kind of hard to see, but he's at the World Trade site and it looks like he's taking a rest or something. But I started with the prompt in New York City, a rescue worker, that's it. And this is how 11-year-old Alec responded. In New York City, a rescue worker is praying to God. He's not sure if there is a God anymore, but faith won't stop working its miracle on him. He is a hero. He isn't hungry for glory, fame, or money. He wants his life back. In New York City, a rescue worker is tired. He gets his energy from the heroes around him, and they get their energy from him. In New York City, a hero is crying. Heroes do cry. Not many 11-year-olds wrote to this step. A lot of them wrote, the man is tired, he's hungry, or he's angry, he said whatever, and that's appropriate, but it's not this. So if you have a kid who, no matter what they see, they bring home the strays, they look out for the underdog, that's a beautiful thing. And it can also be painful at times. Yet at the same time, it's a gift that not everyone has, which is also a sad reality. And the last one is the intensity of soul, which is again those old souls and young bodies. And I'll just give you two brief examples. I'm going to take a quick break. You can have some more breathing dialogue, and then come back. For those of you who might have questions, we have about 15 minutes for that. So some of you have to leave for other things. Thanks for coming. But anyway, here's two examples of soul. This is from a mom writing about her 13-year-old daughter when she was 5. She says, when my 13-year-old daughter was 5 and having her first experience with soccer, I noticed that whenever she had practice, she didn't pay attention to the ball at all. She was busy looking into the sky like a dreamer in a far-off land. So one day on the way home, I said, Michaela, you don't seem to like soccer. It's okay if you don't want to play. I don't want to make you do something you don't enjoy. But what exactly are you looking at in the sky when you're supposed to be paying attention to the drill and instead getting hit by the ball? She replied, oh, I've been studying the geese formations lately. They seem to be in the wrong formations, and I was wondering if there was some sort of danger signal and why are they doing this? I don't want them to go the wrong way for the winter. I'm worried about them. I knew that she was certainly not cut out for outdoor soccer this season. And the next one comes from this dude's brother, younger brother. I had the honor, the privilege to teach both of these boys, this young man, and I'm still in touch with both of them as we speak. But this was his younger brother, Ian, and Ian skipped second grade. I met him when he was a little older than that, but I was also one of the 7th and 8th grade teachers. And the school play that year was Flowers for Algernon, which if you don't know it, oh my God. It's about this mouse named Algernon who gets brain surgery and becomes like the fastest maze-running mouse in the world. And the main character is Charlie Gordon, a man with an IQ of 68. And they give Charlie the same surgery and his IQ rises to over 200. And as Charlie becomes smarter, he also becomes more conscious of his clothing, of his everything around him. But by the end of the play, the mouse can no longer run the mazes, and Charlie goes back to the IQ that he had at the start. It's a powerful play. It was made into an Oscar-winning movie called Charlie, and it's just stunning, and especially for middle school emotion, it doesn't get any better than this. So I said to Ian, you were going to be Charlie Gordon, and he'd never been in a play before. I said, I don't care, you're getting this audition, you'll get the part. He came to my classroom in a total panic, not because of the lines he had to memorize, but because while he was on stage, now again, he's more professionally dressed because Charlie wanted to be, Ian had to wear a suit and not a necktie while he's delivering his lines. 2 problems, he doesn't own a suit. His mom wasn't going to buy him until he stopped growing. Secondly, he never made a necktie in his life. There's no gad around, and his brother's lame, so I looked at Ian, and even in 8th grade, I'm 6'2", he was 6'1". And we were at that time pretty close in weight. I'm a lot more now. But anyway, I brought in my suit. I had one, I hate the thing. And I said, try it on. And he did. And it fit perfectly. And the necktie thing took 3 lunch periods, but we got into it. Well, I couldn't be there for the play. My wife and I were on vacation the week of the play. So I said, okay, Ian, I'm going to give you 2 notes in my coat pocket. Read the one on the left before your performance. And when the last performance is done, read the one on the right. All they were like notes of encouragement and stuff like that. Well, he wrote me an email while we were taking a cruise, and here's what he wrote. Well, it's over. It seems as if my body has been in denial for a month and has finally accepted the fact that I'm tired as hell. I'm too exhausted to compose a sprawling epic, but I'll be sure to write you novel-sized emails tomorrow. I just wanted to say thank you for everything. And it could be that the eyeliner I'm wearing is making me hormonal, but I feel just vulnerable enough now to cry. For 7 hours and 30 minutes, I was Charlie Gordon. I did not have one thought of my own, as I was channeling the spirit of this fictional character.
Well, I have to get some well dressed to make up for the 84 hours of sleep I missed, so I'll email you again tomorrow. When you come back from your vacation, I will give you back your suit with a heavy heart, for Charlie's soul is not present within the fibers of his jacket. Oh, please.
The kid's 12. I mean, how do you know that at 12?
And he's now engaged, living in Austin, one lucky woman. All right, last thing, I said that this last week. This to end this on a funny one, hopefully a funny note. This is another story of a dad and a son in this case. And the 8-year-old boy was in the Cub Scouts. And they're, what do they call them, troops or dens? I always forget. Troops, or whatever they are. The boy was in one, and it was called the Tiger Cubs. And so the kids had to come up and they had to go like, T is for teamwork. And they stood in the line. T is for teamwork. I is for imagination. G is for whatever. Well, this kid came home really upset because he said this, Dad, we should have had space because Tiger Cubs is 2 words. You're right, Eric, but who would want to be a space? 5 minutes later, Eric came back and said, Dad, they could say, I am space. I separate death and life, joy and sadness, good and bad, warmth and coldness. I am a space. So I'm thinking of the line, T is for teamwork. I am a space. And this kid is just totally natural. Who he is. All right, so that's it for the night, except for this. I want to leave you again. I started with Anna-Maria. I want to end the formal talk with her. If you're interested in her work, much of what she wrote about was about gifted adults. If you're sitting here tonight saying, I came here to learn about my kid and I'm learning about me, look up Anna-Maria's work, okay? It's stunning. You can find it freely on many websites. These were just 8 of like 25 characteristics that she talks about, and it may look like a mirror to you rather than just a piece of paper once you start looking over it. Okay, so let's take a quick break. Does anyone need to know where restrooms are? I don't know. Do you have any advice where they are? Out the store and also in the back there. We'll come back in 10 minutes. Is that good? It is now, it is 7:30. We'll come back at 7:40 for about 10 to 15 minutes of questions.